Today, we had the pleasure of speaking with Scott Birkhead. Scott Birkhead is a notable leader within the recruitment space. If you know Scott, you know that he's worked for some of the biggest and best brands out there, like Korn Ferry and Cielo. He and his team are responsible for placing tens of thousands of employees across several organizations. Scott's also a personal coach and has coached over 350 professionals. Scott currently represents GSI, an amazing brand that you're going to get to hear more about. Join us as we discuss the tools, process, and mindset that is needed to thrive in the future of work. Scott brings a lot of very sage wisdom to the conversation and helps remind us that by leveraging technology and AI, we all can become more human-centered. Let's jump in, shall we? People Work is proud to present Strategic Shift, a podcast dedicated to exploring the future of work. Thank you for joining us as we hear stories of bold decisions and workforce innovations. I'm Christy Honeycutt, and I'm your host.
Hi, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. Good to see you. As always, good to see you.
Good to see you. So are you joining us from Colorado?
I am, yeah. I'm in the Denver area. I work in the Denver area. I've lived here since, the early 90s. So been here for a long time. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I'm in sunny Texas today, going to the Bahamas next week. So I'm very excited.
That's good. Can I come?
Yeah.
I want to come.
Well, we do have a family home there, so might need to get you the details. Yes. So great. So Scott, I've known you for a very long time. I've had the privilege of not only working with you, but supporting you back in the day.
Yeah.
And have had the honor of watching your career progression and the teams that you've managed and the success that they've had. But I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience in your own words.
Thank you. I'd love to. I am Scott. I stumbled into recruiting when I got out of the military. I studied enough HR to stumble into the recruiting business, and was in the commission end of it, and didn't really like it at first, but finally got an opportunity to place a few people at a tech company, and the manager there was just such a gracious and interesting manager, and she told me something that I believed all the years I've been in recruiting, which is if you have a team of 10 people and you have a hole in that team, you lose somebody and you fill it with a really great human being, then your team isn't 10 anymore, it's 12 or 13, because of the synergies that you get from having the right people that are focused on the right mission and think in complementary ways. And if you put the wrong person in there, then you're really about 7 or 8 effective, because that person ends up souring the relationship. So what I am primarily is a people connector. I love the thought of small teams. I've been on some fabulous small teams. You've been a part of some of those fabulous small teams, and being on that is really what makes what makes work worth it. We've got to produce results. We've got to produce revenue. We've got to have strategic, sort of progression in businesses. But what makes work, the day-to-day work, important and meaningful for human beings is to be around people they really like and get good stuff done. And that's what's fun about it. So I've always thought about talent acquisition that way, and that's been my life. My life as a coach is built that way. My life as a recruiting leader is built that way. And so that's who I am.
Oh, and I love that. And you're currently with Geostabilization. And so tell us a little bit about Geostabilization, what you guys are doing there, because I find it quite fascinating.
It is fascinating. It's the first time I've been in the construction industry, but if you think of the total construction industry, geostabilization or geotechnical work is only about it's less than 1% of the entire construction industry. So Geostabilization Inc. does geostabilization work. Anytime the earth moves or rocks fall, and it is going to impact infrastructure of some kind, we come in and do specific geotechnical engineering and construction applications to make sure that soil doesn't sink into the ground, the soil doesn't fall off the side of the slope, the rocks don't fall and hit the highway or the cars. We are a very niche, how do you say it, Christy? Is it niche or niche? Part of the civil engineering and the civil construction space. Well, it depends on which part of Texas you're from, probably is what.
I'm going to say niche.
Niche. You're going to say niche. All right, good. Thank you. I'll drop the E.
I could be wrong.
We can start that again if you wanted to. Anyways, it's a very specialized section of the civil construction space. And so we have 3 different business divisions. One's highway safety, one's rockfall mitigation and steep slope, and one is the soils business. We're about 550 million private equity owned, so very fast growth, led by a lean manufacturing executive out of the Danaher Ford world. So very concentrated, distilled Toyota production system model attached to private equity firms. So it's fast growing, fast changing. It's a really interesting business.
Wonderful. And I know that you're very well. You said two things, and one I know, and one I want to call out. But you're a veteran, so thank you for your service. And what branch?
I was in the Air Force for 10 years.
Awesome. So when I talk to leaders, I think it's funny because I have a bias. And I'm just going to tell on myself, but I have a bias based on the years and years of hiring that we both have done over our career. That
Yeah,
veterans or anybody within that's coming out transitioning are the best employees. I just find that they're always early, right? They're always on time. Like, you know what you're getting with a veteran because they've got kind of some good habits. They don't know how not to accomplish a mission.
that's
And
right.
so I love that. So I just wanted to call that out. I don't know if you see that those attributes as well.
We do. We hire a lot of veterans. We weren't this year, but we've been gold. The Veterans Association has a gold medallion for vet hiring. We have multiple special forces folks that we've hired into the organization that have become directors and leaders in different parts of our group. But they tend to know how to collaborate really well because nobody does anything by themselves in the military. It's always a team mission, and that's really drummed into you. You learn your job really well, and then you learn the job of those around you, and then you learn the mission at the top level, and those things really align. And pretty rare to find a training a company that trains people that well. MBA programs do it. You see it in some other parts of the working world, but the military trains people like that habitually. They've done it for years, and so they're really good at training people to think like team members and to think of their job and connect it to the more strategic pieces above them. So yeah, very good. And we love our veterans. Sometimes they struggle with budgets, and sometimes they struggle with not having the same levers to pull. A lot of levers to pull in the military to get things done as a mid-grade or a senior level officer or senior NCO. But outside of that, they're great people, great human beings, very good teammates.
Definitely. I just wholeheartedly think it's a great business plan. So if you're out there, audience, you're listening and you have hiring authority, I'm telling you, veterans are already trained and they come with some really good attributes.
That's right.
So I know one of the things too, Scott, in geostabilization is the same as far as trying to find these really niche roles and trying to put them in different places and the skill sets as our workforce ages is changing. So
Yeah.
how are you kind of meeting the needs there? Because I know that you also have a coaching background, specifically in career development. So how are you helping meet the needs for geostabilization in upskilling? Like, how are you guys thinking about that?
Well, I think I- I'd start that answer by saying that the things I mentioned about military are the things we kind of look for. And as I've coached people over the years, I've coached 350 people on their career journeys as a paid coach, and people are looking for. A lot of people are looking for the same things. Fundamentally, people want the same things out of their work. I used to ask people when you go home and sit on your deck on a Friday night, what makes you, if you had a really great week, what are the things that made it a great week? And it's working around people that are like-minded, doing work that makes sense for my talents and my gifts, being able to knock enough off on my to-do list where I'm not going to, hate next week too much, right? There's 4 or 5 things that commonly, if you ask the questions the right way, you do some 5 why analysis, when you get down to the baseline, people want the same things, but it's that talent and gifts, and it's how do I think about work. Those are the things you've got to really focus on as you interview and you select people, and make sure that you're picking people that are going to match how you do those things in the organization, what kind of values you carry as an organization, and then how you intend to train and grow people. And the interesting thing I found out, and you're a marketer and a salesperson, right? You can always shift a product for a market. You can't shift a market for a product. And so as we hire people, we got to hire people that reflect what we're actually doing in our jobs, even if we don't think it's the best way to do it or the right way to do it, right? And we're not always doing things the right way, but we have a method. This is a 25-year-old company. It's got an old soul to it. It's got kind of a boots on the ground soul. And so we don't hire people that really fit that boots on the ground, old soul mentality. Then nothing we do to skill people is going to work, because they're not going to stick with us. It's about a 5-year curve. In our construction crew business, it's about a 5-year curve to go from entry level to where you're running a crew. You're a superintendent or a foreman, and you're running that crew. And that 3, 4, 5-year curve depends on, if we bring you in, you've got to be able to learn, got to be able to go out and act. safely and correctly on the job. You got to be able to function in an environment long enough to get the skills and to learn to operate the machinery and to pass the certifications and to get to that level. So it's how we're upskilling. It's mostly on the job. There's a lot of video training. We have a great learning and development department that builds a lot of video training for machinery, for safety, for project management, for how to use some of the technical tools we use. For customer interactions, there's a lot of soft skills training, but you got to hire the right person. Got to hire the person who, when they go home on Friday and sit on their deck, they're going to go, I love GSI because it matches who I am, matches how I think about the world. I get to work with people that are like me. I'm using my special gifts and talents. You've got to connect those two all the time. And so I think that's how we're doing it. We're doing it that way. The toughest jobs we fill, there's like 3 really tough categories of jobs we fill. And that's where we have to get more and more granular about that. The tougher the job is, the more specific you have to be in how that connection is going to work. Who are the people you're going to hire? How does that fit your organization? And then how do you plan that engagement path where you're capturing the right ones and the wrong ones are falling out of the process?
Well, and I know that you are a fan of measuring everything, right? And I think we used to hear this all the time back in our former lives, that what gets measured gets done, right? It also
Yep.
gets improved.
Yep.
So, how is it that you guys are measuring kind of the effectiveness and the ROI on the things that your organization is putting in place for your people? So, I know attrition's a good one, right? How they're kind of coming up in the time frame. But are there specific measurements that you're looking for?
Well, we're using kind of core metrics today. Our walking into this assignment about a year ago, I walked into this organization. The systems and the ability to track data, even from just a simple talent acquisition perspective, pretty basic, pretty raw. It's taken us probably took me the first 2 or 3 months to build a core process and then figure out what data I could attach to that process and how to look backwards. It's pretty basic. So yes, any funnel metrics, and as everybody knows, if you're in the recruiting business, the top of the funnel is always the hardest to measure, and we're still pretty bad at that. But everything from a recruiter interview to the end, we can now measure pretty specifically, and we can measure it all the way out to, most of our hiring is construction crew, and we measure all the way to deployment. So the first time they actually travel to go to a job site, we measure all the way through. So we're measuring every single funnel metric: who's dropping out, why are they dropping out, what recruiters are creating, what traction in that funnel, what hiring managers to some degree are trading that traction in the funnel, and then everything post funnel, promotion levels, promotion rates, turnover metrics. Again, we're doing that by group, by department, by hiring manager. We're doing that as granularly as we can, and then we just look for patterns. Right, we're pattern people. The data people are always pattern people. What looks right? What looks different? What looks normal? What looks possible? What's the art of the possible? But it's mostly
That's my
core metrics around people through their employment life cycle.
what's possible is my favorite metric.
What's possible is always an interesting metric, because I still have it over here somewhere on my bookshelf. There's a book called A Whack on the Side of the Head. It's a book about how to be creative, and it taught me that sometimes you just don't think about you don't think about how to get to the next level because you just don't think of it, and you're not willing to let go and be creative. But occasionally we sit down with, I've done this with many teams over the years. We sit down and we say, what's possible? If we removed all the barriers, what could we possibly do? And we try to get as abstract and as crazy as we can, either quantitatively or qualitatively. What's the absolute maximum we'd want? I've done this with coaching clients a lot. What's the absolute most incredible thing that you could have, or the things that you would want? And when you start thinking that way, then you can start to see breadcrumb trails. You can start to see pathways to get to that. And you might not ever get to that ultimate thing, but you start to see pathways. You start to see steps. And suddenly you've got 2 or 3 steps to something that's fairly, it's not an incremental change for your business. It's a quantitative change for your business, just because you took 2 or 3 steps that you didn't think. Good example this year, we looked at deployment times. How do we get from how far from offer through the onboarding process to deployment? And we were at about 2 weeks for frontline people, and the business was growing, and the summer months are really busy for us. And we just had we had a process that had some gates in it for when you have to have things done in order for somebody to be in the next onboarding class. We were only doing onboarding once a week, and we got a lot of pressure. And suddenly one of our team members, one of the smarter of our team members, who's also our systems admin, said, why do we have these gates here? Why do we have these in place? what if we just remove these? And we said, well, the HR people went, oh, what if we remove those? We can't do that. And then we said, well, what if we did? What's the worst that could happen? Well, these three things could happen. All right, so here's our way to protect against or to recover from those three things. And then suddenly our deployment time is down to about 5 days. So we went from 14 to 5 days, and the business went, why didn't we do this before? And we said, we don't know, because we didn't think of that art of the possible. We didn't think through what are our limitations, what are our restraints, which of those are self-imposed, and if we removed them, what might happen, good and bad, and then just fix it, right? So
Such sage advice, of course.
it took a
And
week. It took
well,
a
and
week to make that change, and we've struggled with it for 2 years. They've been struggling with this, and we made that decision and made that change in a week, and it didn't really have any negative impact at all. It only had positive
yeah.
impact. So, yeah.
Well, and I love that it came from a junior team member, right? It didn't come from somebody at the top. And I think I know when we listen and we have collaborative teams that you're well known for building, that we row the boat so much better and faster together than kind of just waiting for approval from the top. So I love that
It came from a
that
new
came from
team
there.
member, which is something I've always been a fan of, right? Anybody that's been in the business for 60 to 90 days probably is one of the best people that start asking those questions, the art of the possible. And what do you see that is restraining us? What do you see that's restrictive? Because they're still new enough. They're not new enough where they'll actually tell you some things. They're not worried about their jobs or making first impression, but they're beyond that enough, and they know enough where to be able to say, these things are kind of sticky. Why do we do it that way? And that's where you get a lot of great ideas. So always good to sit and regularly beat up your own process, beat up your own, you know this from a human, you've been coached a lot. I've been coached a lot. If you don't regularly look at, why do I do that? And what's the reason behind that? And is there really a solid, is the case that we made years ago for doing that still the same as today? If you don't do that on a pretty regular basis, you're just living with limitations you don't have to live with.
Well, and I love that you think that way, because you're very open mindset in the art of the possible. You always have been, which is great. It could be friction for our leaders sometimes, because you're such a forward thinker. So when we look at the technology space that we're in today,
Yeah.
Scott, and I just got back from HR Tech, and there were seas of companies all saying they did the same thing. It's a little confusing. I know you're an old hat at looking at tech and looking at the differences between tech and the impact it has ultimately on the user and the human. So I'm just curious what your perspective is. I know you're passionate about people, talent, purpose. What's your perspective on all this tech, and how can we acclimate?
I am an old hat. I remember working for my second or third company as a technical recruiter in a IT staff aug firm, and the manager came in and he said, "Look at this," and he showed me Monster.com. It was brand new, and he said that's how old I am, Christy. Watch out! And he said, "This is going to revolutionize. We'll all be paperless, and in a year we'll all be paperless." That was, God, I don't even know when that was. That was so long ago. We are more paperless now. I think the pandemic finally killed the paper chase, right, in the recruiting business. But technology always has to serve. It's the core stuff that I talk about. There's still that core connectivity between human beings, and making that connectivity happen correctly at the point of hiring is still what everything is about. And so technology doesn't change that. Technology has altered some of the processes before and after that connectivity. It's changed how we think about the data and how we structure things, and it's changed the process flows, and it's changed how we trade information, but it hasn't changed that. So any technology that's going to be beneficial to the future has to augment that connection. So any technology that pulls you away from that, in my mind, is bad technology. And then if you just take away that purposeful stuff, then obviously technology has to be pretty stable. I love working with nimble, small, fast moving, where you can sit down with the CEO and say, I don't like this, let's fix that. I love that level of technology company, but sometimes they don't actually last. They go away. That's not good for anybody when they go away. So you got to have one that's stable enough. But outside of that, I think I'll give you an example of technology. So my CEO, the CEO here, is a huge AI fan, writes AI. He's trying to write us. He's talking about writing us a CRM so he doesn't have to pay for some of the big Salesforce tools and things like that, right? And he says he thinks with one of the code generators, he could sit down on a long weekend watching football and he could generate us a new CRM. And he may be able to. He's a very, very intelligent human being. very capable human being. But he wrote us a 4-line chat GPT. We have a ring fence version of chat GPT. He wrote us a 4-paragraph instruction on how he wants to rethink, how he wants to remarket jobs based on his approach to talent density. He calls it talent density. How do we raise the bar on talent? And so, although not all of our jobs, we have way too many jobs posted are reconfigured that way. The newer jobs come to me, and then I stick them in a chat GPT, and I say, using this instruction, write me this, and they all come out, and they're all different. It's the same job stuff, but they're all different, right? It finds the salient points in that job, and it talks about how we're growing as a company and what the end result for us. It's basically it's the best copywriter I've ever had for writing job. It's automatic. I can dump something in there and hit the button, and in a minute, less than a minute, 30 seconds, I got a job ad, and I pull that off and I shoot it across to the recruiter, and then the recruiter uses that for intake, and they go and do that. So that's a really good example of how to take write our company as sort of old soul and sort of new soul too. And so how do we take that new soul stuff and inject that into our most important pieces of marketing, which are our job ads? How do we do that on a regular basis and consistent basis and have it spit out consistently and not have to hire a copywriter, right? There's a really good example. So now as I'm saying things to leaders that we're hiring in the organization, it reflects what he's thinking from a talent density and sort of a how we're going to change the culture of the organization. That's a very good use of technology, really good use of technology, because it's helping us to connect with the right kinds of human beings to the way he views how that work is going to get done. And to me, that's good. That's a good use of technology. That's anything that helps me to do that, to go faster, to be simpler, to save recruiter time, to focus human beings on more, right. In that instance, now the human beings that we choose should have seen that message. And as they go into that interview, they're going to be able to have conversations about the right topics, rather than having to spend an hour getting through the core and the basic stuff before they decide whether or not they're ready to interview at that more strategic level. So to me, it's a way to sharpen, to make more effective, to push people towards the right kinds of conversations and to make decisions at a higher level. So that's
and kudos to your CEO leaning in and just completely leaning in. I've seen a lot of leaders that just will go tell their departments, okay, we're implementing AI, go. And he's taken an approach, to kind of a hug approach, I'll call it, right?
It was an interesting process. I worked on a bunch of VP hires in the beginning, and I started to codify the things that he said, not this and not this, and I need this and I need this. And I just kept writing down those patterns. As a coach and as a data person, patterns are really important. So as we went through these interviews and he'd knock people out again and again and again and again, then I would look at, or the ones that were successful, I'd say, what are those patterns? And finally I put them all together and I sent them to him. And as we talked about how to get more talent density, how do we hire better people across the organization without him having to be involved in every single hire? This is the idea that he came up with. And again, he's such an AI fan. He just leaned in and said, all right, I'm going to write this. And he sent it to me. And the next 2 jobs that came down the pipe, I built a little process around it and produced the jobs, and they worked. And so we fast iteration cycle. But he's a big believer. So it was a little bit of just paying attention and listening for the cues. And then it was somebody to execute. He's forced me to go learn AI. He's forced me to learn where we might be using those tools, where we might have gaps where we could use tools, where we have process inefficiencies where we could use tools that will help us to be faster. So it's been a good place for me to have to learn.
He's encouraged you to use AI, because I think you would do it no
encouraged me
matter
to
what.
He's a really interesting human being. He's a great guy. I hope he doesn't listen to this. Well, you cut all these comments out, but he's a great guy. He's perplexing at times to me, but he makes me want to run faster. So that's always a good thing, right?
Good leaders always breed cheetahs for some reason, right? We want to just go fast and hard for our employer. So I know we danced a little bit around organization and kind of, behind the mask, right? So for candidates out there that are trying to navigate, where do I apply? Is this a real job? Is this fraud? They're getting messages from WhatsApp, they're getting emails, they're getting all kinds of different things claiming that they're all the different brands that we know and love, right? Which I'm pretty certain probably aren't actually recruiting in that way. What guidance do you have for the genuine candidate that's looking to find a job, to identify maybe where their gaps are? And also, I'm going to double edge the question, because there's this we're in the midst, we always have been in talent, the value of a college degree versus a different avenue, those that aren't meant for college. Like, what is your guidance to the college bounds that are coming out and the ones that aren't meant for college, navigating this world of work with all the changes?
Those are two really big questions. You can't ask
I
me
know.
two big questions in the same breath. You have to wait. I would say we actually had somebody recently that used GSI's logo, was putting out,
Mhm.
I don't know what to what end, but they were literally putting out offers to people for jobs that didn't exist with us.
Yeah.
Um, and we had to figure out with LinkedIn how to go cut that off and how to make that stop happening. And I don't know that they had any really good answers for us. It was really weird. I've never seen that happen before. Maybe other people have seen that a lot, but it happened. And so there are lots of, for what end, to what end, what purpose, I don't understand. And maybe I'm too obtuse to think that way, but it doesn't make any sense to me. But I think if you're a job seeker and you're getting something that looks too good to be true, um, stop. Look at that company online. Find them. It's one of the great things about having a LinkedIn account is you can find the recruiters that work in that company. You can ping them and say, "Hey, is this a real job?" You can look at their career site. Go to their career site. 3 or 4 steps of research, and you'll know, does that job exist in a formal HR, informal HR, function, ecosphere for that company, right? Is it a job? Does a recruiter know about it? Can you see other people that look like they're doing that job inside that organization? Those are the things that I would do immediately just to make sure that it's real. Hard because companies don't often pay attention to recruiters don't often pay attention to pings from people outside the organization or pings on a LinkedIn employer page. It's hard sometimes to make that connection. So, but you got to try. You got to try to do that, and then just be really cautious when they start asking for personal information through a method that doesn't make any sense. Then you've probably got something that's wrong, and you probably should cut it off. Right? Um, Needing a job and needing a paycheck is a really, really powerful set of emotions and complexities, and it'll cause you to do dumb things if you're not careful. So even in coaching people over the years, even at the point of offer, even great offers, step back, take a look. Is it real? Did you ask the right questions? Did you really ask enough questions to understand what you're getting yourself into? Right? You have to learn to that Chinese warrior philosophy, thick face, black heart, right? Eventually you got to take a step back. You got a little thick, right? And then blacken your heart a little bit and just tear away from those emotions and say, does this really make sense for who I am, for what I'm doing? Does it make sense in general? Is it a rational thing? Uh, I think that's the answer to the first one. I think the second is um, college degrees. That whole it's changing in our culture, the value of that degree. I think it's changing in some job categories more than in others. Uh, but I
I
think
agree.
I used to ask managers, or you'd always have this question as you did intake meetings with managers: what's the value of that degree in your business? But they got to have a degree. Why? What's the value of that degree? What does that bring somebody? What do the candidates with degrees or the employees that you've hired with degrees have that people without degrees don't have? And so I think it's important, if you don't have a degree, if you're not going to go that path, that you sit and think through that. In my job category, what are the things that a degree would help me to do? And it's typically research, it's writing, to some degree, it's collaboration, it's being able to handle numbers. You learn in almost every degree how to handle the numbers in your business. What are the numbers in your business? And numbers are really critical. So I think for most entry level jobs, some of those things are not as important. Those jobs are more prescribed. But as you're going to move up to the next level, even senior direct contributor, certainly if you're going to move to team leader manager jobs, and you can't see the process. You can't see how important the collaboration is in your process with people outside of that process, right? You've hired team leads in the recruiting business. I've hired team leads, right? And
Mhm.
that's what typically you want somebody that really executes the process really well. But then you want somebody that also can look up and see the next layer and say, hey, if we change these things, this would work better down here. And so to me, that's, again, it's a perspective, it's a bit of research, it's ability to handle numbers and metrics and data. It's the ability to test your own opinion and validate your own opinions or other people's opinions. Those are things that you learn to do in college with a college degree. And so if you're not going to be on that track, but you want to have a career where you have some advancement, you need to learn how to do those things anyways, right? So how do you do that? I don't know. You get a coach, you do some research, you take a couple of classes, or all kinds of online classes for these things. But I think you gotta, to some degree, you gotta quantify what's the value of a degree in your specific field, and then decide how do you accumulate some of those skills, and how do you display. Sometimes it's just displaying those skills.
Mm.
I meet a lot of people in the construction industry who actually can do those things, but they don't know how to write and display those skills for themselves on a piece of paper that proves to them that they can do it, that proves to an employer that they can do it. So I think to some degree, that's the other thing. In a college program, you're required to present ideas in a way that's consumable by other people. You're required to defend those ideas. I think those are some things that are important as well.
That was a very good answer. It was a long one. I knew I threw you a zinger, but that was such a great answer.
Well, no, you're
And
going to cut half of that later. I know you are.
oh no, it's all relevant. And it is great because our world is changing, and
Mm,
there with the rise of technology and how much we're automating everything, I think
yeah,
there's going to be a focus, kind of a shift coming on EI and EQ, and then people under trying to I mean, we've talked about it for years. How do you translate something technical for the rest of the world? So it's just helping candidates or people understand how do they translate their value
you bet.
so it's digestible for an
You bet.
organization to see their value because they're navigating fraud, several different applications. I mean, in the world of work, we're all trying to figure out how that's gonna change for salary and hourly. Is it going to be more automated? Is it gonna be more AI?
Right.
So there's lots of stuff for them for both parties, both camps to subscribe to and try to navigate. And
Mm.
it's a tough one because, I mean, employers, we're all navigating which way to go with tech and how to elevate and answer some of those questions, have that open mindset. But I
Yeah.
loved, kind of taking the onus on themselves, right? And, like, seeking out how to be better in those things, the training and the coaching and the different things you
Yeah.
mentioned.
A college program, people that go through college programs and get degrees don't always bring those skills with them. They don't always learn all that. They don't always bring those. They're not always good at those things. And so I think it's part of the debate is whether somebody that has a degree automatically has these things. No. Whether somebody that doesn't have a degree doesn't have those, definitely no. I think there's a case to be made on both, but I think again, the higher you go up, and again, I've trained team leads. I've trained managers now how to manage things. The higher up you go, where your value produces a better paycheck for you, and a more reliably larger paycheck for you. The more you need to understand the nature of work. And so we started this conversation, the nature of work, and the nature of the value of the process that you're involved in, and what that means to the business, and how you um, alter that process or manage that process differently in a way to deliver more value. It's who your customers and all the rest of that. So it's an interesting thing to think about. You don't have to have a degree to learn that. You don't have to have an MBA to learn that. But some of
Mhm.
those programs will sharpen those tools faster and more completely, more robustly than learning it on your own.
Yeah, it's interesting too because and you had mentioned this, I think, prior to us hopping on, but I think we're gonna start seeing an increase in career fairs like we used to because that human connection that they're actually going and they're seeing a person and they're having that conversation versus maybe getting lost in an applicant tracking system or posting out on LinkedIn that they're,
Yeah,
looking for a job. I think we're going to start to see a transition more into human-centric interactions for the future of work. I
I
think
think
it's going to be nice coupled, but I think we're going to see the
yeah.
rise of that.
Well, and yeah, I think you're right. And then interestingly, as you look at some of the AI products for screening, some of the new voice AI products they're really tough interviews, man. They're not easy interviews. You think an AI would ask you dumb high level questions and not know what to ask next, but I've done some AI interviews sampling products that are really difficult. So I think you're right. It's that human interaction, but still, the issue still is it the right connection to make at the right time, and how do we
Mhm.
determine that? And there's a lot of new products and technologies going that direction as well. So it's an interesting new world. The tech business just never, especially in the HR space, it just never
Yeah.
stops throwing us new ways to think about things and new ways to do things.
As soon as we've got it figured out, something else new comes.
And you build a
And then
tech
we all
stack, and you start to execute with that tech stack in the recruiting business, and then before you know it, your tech stack, if you're probably you should never sign a contract longer than 2 years. You should hire an implementation and a project manager And that's what I'd like to do. Like to have somebody that's a systems owner and a project manager skill set combined. And then I'd like to sign 2-year contracts. And every year we're just upgrading. Every year we're just up leveling, new stuff all the time.
I believe that in my heart of hearts that that is some really good advice that you
Yeah.
gave, because if you look at just the past 5 years, the HR tech that's out there and how it's evolved and who's still around and who's pulled out, like you made a lot of valid points about kind of picking, like going to the race horses, you got to pick the horse races.
One of the
You got to
horses.
pick, yeah, you got to pick your best horse. And I think that's kind of where it is. You got to bet on it, but you also got to make sure, like, okay, are they training the horse? Are they resting the horse? Are they feeding the horse? Like, is the horse still valid in 2 years, or do I need to go for a younger pony? We're seeing that play out, and you're seeing it from the acquisitions and
Yeah.
everything that we've
Yeah.
seen, right?
Yeah.
So everything you're saying, like, guys, you're seeing it play out in the world. Just
When
Google
quantum
it.
leads, I mean, AI is
Yeah.
some tools today, some even suites of tools are built with AI at the core, and they have AI specialists, and they have an opinion, and they have an internal team working on how to best manage the AI in order to produce the results they want through their product suite. Others are bolting AI onto an older product suite, and it's not the same. So I think it's really there's some revolutionary new technologies, and how companies choose to be in that space, and how companies choose to productize in that space is really important. And it means big changes. And that's not the last one. Quantum computing is coming. There's all kinds of things coming down the line that will be these revolutionary changes. If you sign a 4 or 5 year contract with a provider and they're not really embedded in that quantitative change, whatever that next one is, then you're behind. You're behind, or
Yeah.
you're getting a little splash of AI, but you're not actually getting an AI base to that product, right?
So are you saying if you're not first, you're last, Ricky Bobby?
No, um, I, I like the trailers in Ricky Bobby better than the whole rest of that movie, but no, I'm not saying you're first or last. I'm saying it's competitive, and there are fewer and fewer people
Mhm.
being born, and fewer people in specific job categories that really make sense. You've seen this, right? Every business you've ever been in has jobs that are harder and harder to fill, and are more and more critical to fill because they're hard to fill. And so, if you don't have the latest and the greatest, if you're not really broadly figuring out how to farm, how to hunt, how to do all the things you have to do in talent acquisition, if you don't have ways to do that, then your costs go up. Your speed to delivery goes down, and your cost goes up, and pretty soon you're irrelevant. You're not serving the business the way you should. So
You're not
ultimately,
a
you
business
gotta
partner.
serve. You're not a business partner. That's right.
Yep. That's the difference with our friends and family that out in the world, is that's the difference, right? It's becoming a business partner, actually taking everything that you talked about methodically and bringing a point of view to the table, which is awesome, because you are impacting the future of work, which is a beautiful thing, my friend. So I'm
Thanks.
glad you're doing it. We're
Yeah.
lucky to have you in our sphere. Well, before we drop, Scott, we've covered a lot of different topics, all on the future of work and innovation. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Any final thoughts?
I would say, don't be afraid of it. I'm reading a great book right now on. It's a book on humility. It was actually written about 7 or 8 years ago. It's a book on humility, but the focus of the book is to humble yourself, and to think
Mhm.
about what's the value of technology in your space, and what's the what are the fears, what are the things that are holding you back. And some of it's fears, and some of it's pride. And so as I look at myself, I think sometimes those two things are really almost always connected, right? You're proud of the lessons that you've learned in your life. You're proud of your hard won experience, and you want to use that, you want to leverage that. And maybe technology is going to pass that by. And so the truth is that's not the case. Technology is going to help you leverage that experience better. And so the faster you get over that pride, and as a coach, I tell people to lean into those fears, examine those fears, really pull them apart. What's the worst that could happen? And what's the thing that you're most afraid of? Why are you the most afraid of that? And when you pull that apart, and then you look back at that technology, you get a different perspective on it. So regardless
Mhm.
of whether you're a consumer in the job hunting space looking at it, or whether you're a service provider or an HR provider or what have you, getting to the point where you look and recognize that impulse to fear or to pride, those are things that will keep you from adopting technology faster than anything.
Mhm.
And in general, like the boss and the copywriter, I'm very proud of my copywriting skills, even though I probably haven't written very much good copy in my life. But the minute he put a new tool in my hand, and I went, wow, this works pretty well, right? So get over it, right? Get over yourself and go use that technology and move on. Now I can move on to really getting my recruiters to do different things and doing different things myself, rather than having to worry about, do I need to audit those job descriptions? Are those going to be any good? Did they post something that makes sense? Now I know that we're going to crank them out. They're going to be good quality. They're going to be the right messaging. So that's my last message. Don't be afraid. Anytime you're afraid, anytime you're proud, lean in, spend an hour, pull that apart, get over it, and then figure out what to do next.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Scott. Guys, go check this man out and please lean into it. Don't be fearful. Until next time.
Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Christy Honeycutt. Be sure to subscribe to Strategic Shift so you never miss an episode. Tune in next time as we continue to explore innovation in the future of work. Until then, keep shifting.